Closure. To see good conquer evil, friends reconcile, and lovers to embrace as the final curtain falls in a promise for forever. The phenomena of closure is so deeply entrenched in cinema and the human psyche that our minds have been trained not only to expect it, but to search for it. The closed film ending is designed to cater to this need. Each hanging thread of narrative is attempted to be resolved or addressed in a way that is satisfying. This closed narrative philosophy forms the basis of many audience members' ideas of what a good film should be, the correct way to tell a narrative. Humans also impose these closed narratives on time. We use stories, or as Frank Kermode calls them, concord fictions, as a mental schema that makes the mess of living and chronology easier to understand, gives it shape, comfort, finality. Life and its stories, however, do not often fit as neatly as the world of the screen. We continue to experience life after the end of the stories we tell ourselves. When stories end, it is often without a neat conclusion. No epilogue, no after-credits sequence, or final song and dance. It can be said then that to create a film that acknowledges this unneatness within life is not to create a film that fails to give closure, but instead to make a film that rejects our interpretive habits and our search for closure. These films often attempt to mirror reality, and often pose a poignant question or leave the audience in thematic suspense and discomfort. The filmmaker builds a living, breathing world, building over the film's runtime to an eventual emotional climax, promising a resolution for its characters, its world, and then it stops. Unresolved. Leaving audiences to sit in the discomfort of uncertainty, left with questions still unanswered, forced to search for the answers themselves. This is the philosophy of the open ending. The traditionally accepted ending of a Hollywood or Western film is one that ties up all loose ends of plot or narrative in order to create a satisfying conclusion. It's a reasonable question to ask, why would or should a filmmaker choose to leave an ending unresolved? To answer this question, I will review some examples of when filmmakers have chosen to use this slightly unconventional technique. What I'm referring to as an open-ended film is a film which leaves either its plot or some other major element unresolved with no promise to return. This is in line with the writings of Richard John Newport in his book, Narration and Closure in the Cinema. This definition means that I'm not referring to extended universe films and sequel films in this video, which Newport describes as having a series of extended action codes which do eventually reach a point of closure. One of the four major film movements that most influence modern film is the Italian neorealism. Directors like Rossellini and De Sica shot using non-professional actors, real-life locations with real extras, and recorded without sound equipment on set, overdubbing the dialogue in post, allowing for the camera to move more freely within a space. These directors favoured open endings, and in these films they act as a key narrative device in their portrayal of social injustices and the struggles of the working class. The endings do not allow the characters in the film closure. The films leave the audience with an uncomfortable feeling, perhaps of sadness, anger, or injustice, in hopes that these feelings will be directed towards the real world around them and result in positive social change. The 1948 film Bicycle Thieves by Vittorio De Sica offers a grit-filled look into the lives of working-class man Antonio and his family. The film begins with Antonio being offered a job posting advertising bills which he cannot accept as it requires a bicycle. His wife chooses to sell their bedsheets and purchase a bicycle so he can accept the job, but the bike is stolen on his first day. Over the course of the film, we watch Antonio and his son Bruno attempt to retrieve the bicycle. The pair, searching for a two-wheeled needle within a city-wide haystack, are driven to anguish. With nowhere else left to turn, Antonio spots a lone bicycle and attempts to steal it. The alarm is raised and Antonio is immediately apprehended by a crowd of white-collared men who only allow him to go free thanks to the bicycle owner's compassion for the cries of the young Bruno. At this point, the rhythm of the film slows. Cuts become less frequent and the camera angles begin to restrict, eventually cutting to a wide shot of the pair walking with backs turned and becoming lost within a horde of people. This narrative is cyclical, beginning with a theft and ending with one. Over the course of 2 hours, we go from hating a bicycle thief to sympathizing with another. The open ending leaves the audience with no resolution to the problems of wealth inequality presented in the film, only with questions about how such injustices could be present in the first place to cause Antonio, who we are shown as a kind man, to steal a bicycle in the first place. The final shot of the ending scene shows our protagonist literally and metaphorically as just another person in the crowd. The director's choice to not show any faces here is incredibly purposeful, as the open ending requires certain filmmaking language to portray to the audience that the story is ending. The characters of this world physically walk away from the narrator that is the camera. This ending device is paired with the aforementioned restricting point of view, slow cuts, and musical cues to create a world that Rossellini calls a living object, which to the audience feels like it will continue on even after the story has concluded being told and we have finished watching it. The 2019 Korean film Parasite uses the open ending to a similar effect to portray the cyclical nature of wealth inequality. At the end of the film, we see Ki-woo writing a letter to his father, promising that he will get rich and buy the Park family house so he can rescue him, a plan to get him out of the basement, which represents the poverty they live in. This is similar to how his father attempts to get the family out of the basement they are shown living in at the beginning of the film. Shots of him doing just that are revealed to be fantasy. This portrays similar themes to a quote from American writer John Steinbeck. Socialism never took root in America because the poor see themselves not as exploited proletariat but as temporary, embarrassed millionaires. This idea or belief of pulling oneself up by the bootstraps to earn money and beat the system is shown within Parasite as a fantasy that perpetuates inequality, with this cyclical open ending being key in its portrayal of an unresolved problem. Another great example of a thematic use of the open ending is within the 2019 film Whiplash, directed by Damien Chazelle. This time not to comment on social injustices, but on a much more abstract concept: greatness. In this film, the open ending is not used to comment on society as a whole, but instead to offer us a rhetorical question about a situation that is full of contradictions. Do the ends justify the means?
In the final scene of Whiplash, Neiman completely overrules Fletcher's authority and takes control of the band. During this performance, Fletcher begins to smile. In this moment, Neiman has become everything that he wants him to be. The use of extreme close-ups makes this scene incredibly intimate and personal between the pair. Fletcher's antagonistic persona falling as Neiman plays, mouthing to him the words he described as the two most harmful in the English language. Good job. The director chose to cut out Fletcher's mouth in this shot, as in this moment, his words are only for Neiman. Both the protagonist and antagonist have achieved their goals. Neiman has finally won Fletcher's approval, and Fletcher has found his new, truly great musician. The ending of this film is brilliant in the way it poses its questions. Fletcher throughout the film is a terrible man, and his methods of teaching have incredibly negative effects on Neiman, visually represented by Neiman's blood on the drum set in the final scene. Fletcher's previous student committed suicide, which is likely not unrelated to Fletcher's actions having an effect on his mental health. But Fletcher's methods are undeniably effective. As an audience, we have no idea what happens to Neiman after the curve falls, whether the results of Fletcher's actions will allow Neiman to achieve his super objective to have a brilliant music career, or if he will end up like his previous student. This causes us to consider the film's themes of ambition, obsession, the destructive nature of both of these things, and where morality fits within the creation. To leave the antagonist unpunished, successful even, defies conventional expectations and encourages the audience to consider for themselves the nature of artistic greatness and methods of achieving it.
To me, one of the most iconic open endings of all time is John Carpenter's The Thing. At the end of the film, there are two survivors. Neither one is sure if the other has been infected by an alien parasite. The film presents powerful depictions of human paranoia, distrust, and the destruction it brings about. The open ending has led to countless fan theories and discussions and creates a chilling sense of dread in the viewer. The final ending I would like to talk about is the year 2000 film American Psycho, one of the most misinterpreted endings of all time. A large amount of audience members have watched this film and completely missed its satirical nature. The director of the film has stated in an interview that she wishes she made the ending of the film more ambiguous, as too many viewers believed all of Bateman's actions to be a dream, when in reality the director believed that not to be the case. The director was attempting to make commentary about the incredibly wealthy and their preference for false appearances through satirical displays of superficiality and indifference. This indifference to Bateman's confession of his actions, portraying the idea that the rich can get away with anything. Audiences misinterpret this indifference as it all being within his head, which is unfortunate as it creates confusion around the film's message. I believe the ending could be closer to the director's intention with a change of how it was edited. Before the final scene in Harry's bar, there is a scene of Bateman's assistant going through his scheduling book. I believe if this scene was instead intercut with his final monologue through montage, it would create more of an impression that he actually committed the acts he confessed to, doing so while still leaving the ending sufficiently ambiguous like the director intended and the original book. All these open endings serve to help these films narratively and thematically to a great deal, whilst going against our interpretive habits and causing an uncomfortable emotional response that makes us think in more complex ways about film. Every ending sparks questions within the viewer. I believe that the success of these films and many other great open-ended films should cause us as filmmakers to question how important closure is for a film and to what degree it's required, and as audience members should cause us to question to what level we should desire it or expect it.